guys, it's Ellen, and today I'm going to be filming my April wrap-up. I'm actually really proud of what I did this month, considering the fact that the first half of the month I was like in a total reading slump and barely read it all. So I really picked up at the second half of the month, and I'm really excited to show you guys the books I read, because I read some really good books. The first book I read is actually a really short one, and it's a little speech by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and this one's called We Should All Be Feminists. It's a cute little, it doesn't have any pictures in it, but it has like just a speech that she made about feminism, and I think that this is just so pertinent and so good. It's quick, it's easy, it's accessible, and I think this would be a really great gift for anybody. I actually already bought like 6 copies, and I'm going to give them to everybody I know. So, yeah, I love this one. Obviously, 5 out of 5 stars. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is a great writer. She really knows what she's talking about, and she says it in a way that's not offensive, in a way that you can really understand it even if you aren't really interested in feminism, really. You can see the connections no matter what. So I loved this. And yeah, you should definitely go read it. 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read really pulled me out of my reading slump, and it was Visitors by Orson Scott Card. And I absolutely love this book. It is by far my favorite in the whole series. And now I know that Orson Scott Card has a lot of, controversy around the person, but I would like to separate him from the books because I really think this was an incredible read, and I loved it. You can tell I marked up like so many different pages where they just I was just like blown away by the writing or by the plot or anything. It just was so good, and it was an incredible wrap-up to the whole series. This is the 3rd book in the Pathfinder series. I don't know if I said that. But I'm sad it's over because I really enjoyed it. It's a long book, but it's very easy to get through. The writing is quick. It's action-packed. It's full of intrigue. And I love the characters. They were just really interesting and very unique characters. So yeah, this one definitely 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished is another book that I absolutely loved, and this one's The Nightingale by Kristin Hanna. And Kristin Hanna usually writes, I've read a couple of her books, and she writes contemporaries for the most part, but this is historical fiction, and it takes place in France during World War II, before and during World War II. And I loved it. I just thought that the characters were beautifully written. The story, it wasn't just about the war. It was about it's about these 2 sisters who were dealing with the war. One of them is she is becoming a revolutionary, and she really wants to do something about the injustices that are happening. And the other sister is more protecting her family and wanting to kind of lay back and not piss anybody off and get in trouble. But there ends up being a German soldier. There ends up being a German soldier that is living in her house, has to live in her house. She has to deal with that during the war, and it's just so beautiful. And I didn't see the ending coming, and I just loved it. The writing is so beautiful. So if you like historical fiction, definitely pick this one up, especially if you like World War II, because I read a lot of World War II books, and it's definitely one of my new favorites. I loved it. The next book I read, or I finished, was The Archive by Victoria Schwab, and I had a hard time getting into this one, not because I didn't like the writing, because I love the writing, and not because I didn't like the plot, because I think it's very intriguing, but just because it kind of freaked me out a little bit, and as I was reading it, it has this very eerie quality to it, and it also, it's just, the main character is so sad. She's just very sad throughout the entire book, and she's going through these really difficult parts of her life and dealing with those, and also dealing with being a member of the archive. And it was very sad to read about her, and it wasn't uplifting. But near the end, things started to get better for her, and the archive became crazy interesting, and all these crazy things happened, and I was really pulled into it, and so I finished this one, and I can't wait to pick up the next book. I think that will probably almost definitely be in my May TBR, because I really want to know what happens after this. So yeah, this one, I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, just because I had some, I know it was meant to be that she was sad, but it was a little bit creepy, but I had a hard time with it, so I think that I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It definitely helped that there was a 24-hour readathon during April, where I don't know if I would have been able to finish this book otherwise. It's The Shell Collector by Anthony Doerr, and it's not that it's not like good or anything. I really liked it, but it's really detailed, very descriptive. As is all of Anthony Doerr's writing. He is a beautiful writer, but he tends to really go into details. In this book specifically, a lot about shells, which is to be expected, but there are a lot of shells in here, and a lot about nature and just interactions that different people have with nature. I found that the beginning of this book was a lot stronger than the end of the book, which is a little bit disappointing because I was hoping that it would, as it went downhill in the middle, that it would sort of pick up at the end and I would enjoy the stories more, but I found I didn't love the end stories. My favorite was the first one, definitely. I think it's just called The Shell Collector. Yeah, The Shell Collector. The one story in here that I really had an issue with was, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's called Mkondo, M-K-O-N-D-O. It was the last story, which isn't great because it ended on a not so good note for me, but it's basically about this guy who travels to a different country, an African country, and he decides that he wants to, like, tame this woman and bring her back to America with him. And there are so many issues with that theme in general, and if it had been maybe played out in a way that sort of discusses the issue, how that's an issue, maybe I would have been okay with it, but it just kind of brushed that under the rug, the fact that, like, oh, it's normal that this guy is gonna go and, like, tame this woman who loves to, like, run in Africa and bring her back to America and, like, keep her in the house. It was really problematic for me, and I did not like it. But I also just really didn't like the guy character. I liked the female character. I found that she was hard to relate to because the things she did were things that I would never do. Like, she loves to run all over the place, and that's really not me. So I had a hard time relating to her, but I did like her. But the guy character, I didn't like at all. Yeah, so definitely the first story is the best in here. So if you're going to read one story, I would say go with that one. It's really interesting and weird, but good. But overall, it was a beautiful read because the language is so descriptive and beautiful, but I think I'm going to go back. I marked a bunch of places where I probably will go back and look at the writing, but I don't think I'll go back and read any whole stories again because none of them other ones really stuck with me. The last book that I finished this month is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This one was really interesting. I was trying to think about how to talk about it on here. I was like, I just don't even know where to start. It's like such a weird book, and it's so unlike anything I've ever read before. Because it's not fantasy, it's not sci-fi, it's not really dystopian, it's sort of just like magical realism? No, I don't know what it is, but I guess fantasy would be the closest that it would come. But it's about clairvoyance. It takes place in the year 2059, but it's not really a future that we would be familiar with because apparently, like, in the past, different things had changed that made the society this certain way at this time period. And the main character, Paige, is a clairvoyant. She is a dream walker, which means that she can take her spirit and like put it out into the ether and like look at other people's dreamscapes, like their spiritual minds, I guess. Is a very basic way of putting that. But I also found that it was a little bit difficult to get into this book just because there were so many like different words. Like, it was a whole new vocabulary that I had to learn. And I feel like with a lot of different fantasy books, like the words kind of make sense. Like, you kind of can like recall them from different fantasy stories or fairy tales you might have read as a kid, or just words that, you know, make sense to you. But in here, I feel like a lot of the words were kind of gibberish, and I had a hard time keeping them in my head and knowing what they mean. And also there were a ton of characters, and they all had weird names, and it was kind of hard to keep track. There is a glossary in the back, which is very helpful, that goes through each of like weird words like gillet and julker, and just like words that just don't click with me. I can't find a way to remember what they are, but overall, I really did like this story a lot, and I am looking forward to reading the Mime Order next. I don't know if I'm going to read it right away, because I'm still kind of digesting what's happened in this story. I do think that this book would have been a little bit better if it hadn't if it had been longer, which I don't often say because I really like when books are concise. But this book, I really feel like the ending was rushed. Like, I feel like the author had these like certain like tick mark of things that she wanted to happen at the end, and she just kind of like had them happen rapid fire, and then all of a sudden the story was over. And I don't know, I didn't love that. I liked the things, and I liked the idea of those things happening, but I just think they were just so rushed, and I didn't get to enjoy them. I don't know. Overall, I did really enjoy the story. It's a quick and fun read. It's really interesting, really different for me. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Okay guys, that's everything I read this month. I think I did pretty well, and I really enjoyed a lot of the books that I read, so it was overall a great month for me. I will be back soon to talk about what I plan on reading in May. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in my next one. Bye!